Coaching as Benevolence, a podcast for people who are curious about using coaching for self-development. I'm Eryn with Roots and Wings Grief and Loss Coaching.
And I'm Shawn with Michelle Sage Place Positive Intelligence Coaching.
We are back from the Thanksgiving holiday where I definitely had a lot of good food and a good time with my family. And now we're here, LaShawn and I, starting December and moving into the holiday season and then into January with New Year's resolutions coming up and so forth. And I know we have said this before, early on in the fall, that's probably a really good time to start thinking about goals and trying to come up with coaching-like plans for them. And to continue that line of thought, this time of year is also a really nice time to sit down and listen with the stillness of the cold air and potentially the snow that the season brings, to listen to what priorities need the most support, need the most change moving forward as you go into 2026. So today, LaShawn and I thought it would be helpful to talk about prioritization, possibly letting go, and how we can do that with our clients and with ourselves when we do this type of work, when we prioritize and when we, set goals very differently. There are some best practices, but it is a very kind of personalized process. And I know LaShawn and I will come at this from different angles as well. So today, LaShawn, how about you share with us something about what you're prioritizing and how your process is going to make that happen?
I would say that my process starts with values, right? So you're just looking at what you value, what's important to you, what really matters. And, just coming off of this week vacation, because our nonprofit follows the Boulder Valley School District calendar. So they had the week off. So we took kind of the week off. I had to work Monday. But it's just, coming off of this week and then also getting over a cold, I would say that I'm prioritizing my health now, especially since so much of what I do really depends on showing up and being here and being strong and also having a clear head. And that's really hard to do when you're coming, just getting over a really bad cold. And so, and then of course, those type of things, when you get sick, those type of things stop you in your tracks. You can't do anything, you're fighting a fever, you're fighting coughs, runny nose, all kinds of things, feeling really icky. And so you kind of have to stop and you have to kind of think about, oh my gosh, I'm thinking, how did I get here? I do my best to get plenty of rest but I was burning it on both ends towards the end of November, just before the break. And I kind of knew that if I didn't take some time off, that I was going to hit a wall. And unfortunately, it came sooner than I expected. But, I'm glad that I had the weekend to recover, but definitely prioritizing my health. So in order to prioritize my health, I need to also be very mindful of the things that drain me and things that energize me. So when I prioritize, of course, it's for me, it's going to be the things that are most important in my job, my 9 to 5. And then, of course, I am thinking about my family life as well. Like what I'm triaging. What is the most important thing that I need to focus on for the family? So there's that too. So definitely prioritizing health, prioritizing, the things that need to get done. Deadlines are already kind of a built-in priority right there. So if you have to meet certain deadlines in my line of work, really am mindful of getting those things done, at least a week or a week and a half before the actual deadline. That way, if there's any hiccups or anything, everything is a process in the nonprofit world, especially with grants and things like that. So going through the process and making sure starting that process, several weeks in advance. So that's also a priority. But really, Mostly it's going to come down to the things that have a deadline, the things that align with my values and what matters to me most, and being able to do the things that I need to do, that my responsibilities, the things that people depend on me for. I want to make sure that I can show up and be sharp-minded, clear-minded, and able to get tasks done in a way that is not only satisfactory, but is high quality. So that's really important to me. How about you, Eryn?
I mean, I love that you say it starts with values and then what you can recognize within yourself, what drains you and what energizes you. I like that framing as a good starting point for anybody who may be listening to sit down and consider. And so even when I consider that starting with values, well, I know on the VIA values in action inventory, strengths assessment, that love of learning is my number one. So if that's my number one value, something that I bring a strength within to this world, I might want to go back and see how my business is aligned with that. And not only that, I'm kind of at this crossroads where I have opportunities to kind of move into that learning space again, versus the, service space. And they don't have to be so separate. However, to be able to clear up space for that learning space for the next chapter, I probably do need to realign priorities for service. Now, that's never been a strength of mine. Everyone's like, you need to prioritize this or keep prioritizing things or, stay focused on the one thing that you're good at or, all those things. And maybe it's from my childhood growing up in a small school system where you had to do everything, all the music, all the athletics, all the arts, all the leadership, all of it, that I have been trained to hold on to things when I don't necessarily need to do that anymore. And so I think the other piece in this process, once you've started with your values and you recognize what's draining and energizing you, I think another piece here is to look at old patterns of behavior and ask yourself, why was that season like that? Or why did I take that on in my job? Or why did I choose to not take that on? And what did I gain or lose from that instead? So this seems like a very reflective process to set priorities at first. Whereas sometimes I think with goal setting, yes, it's reflective, but it's really future looking in a lot of ways. So I think one thing that I am noticing in this conversation is that to better set more effective priorities, I think it is helpful to have the discipline to sit with the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings of what's going well, what's not going well, how those patterns of behavior have shown up for you in the past, and what to do next. And I can clearly see a pattern of behavior in I'll take on something new, not let something go. Take on something new, not let something go. Or take on something new and then take on something new again, and then wonder what my day went, what were my priorities, that sort of thing. And so I need to sit with that. What can I let go of? Why am I taking certain things on? And really just be curious. And I think for me, also in that process of being curious of what I'm holding on to and letting go of, I think it's really helpful to look at that from an objective lens or a lens that a friend might see me through versus just myself where I will automatically cave to doing more. So those are just a few other additions that I've noticed in my own life to this process of setting priorities and letting go. LaShawn, what's coming up for you?
I like how you divided service and learning, because I also am, I would have to say, I haven't done the values and that questionnaire, but I would say that learning is definitely high up on my list in terms of values. I really value learning and expanding and growing. Growth is something I think that is a value that I am looking at more when it comes to things that are taking up a lot of my time and effort and energy. I often have to ask myself, is this really in alignment with my growth, with the trajectory of my growth, where I'm going, or is this keeping me where I was 10 years ago or a year ago or 10 months ago? And do I feel like this is growing with me? And if not, maybe I need to let that go. So I would say that one thing that I would do to divide those things in terms of like drainers and energizers is if I'm experiencing growth and expansion and I'm around people who are uplifting me and encouraging me and challenging me and inspiring me, then I feel energized. But if I'm in a group of people who it feels like a chore, an obligation, I don't feel valued, or I don't feel like they even notice me, or even care what I'm doing or my contribution, and it's draining me, then and then it's not really helping me grow, then I have to ask the question, okay, is this something that I really want to put a lot of effort and energy in to? Because if I have only so much. I have a capacity. I'm not limitless. As much as I would love to be limitless, I am not limitless. So I have to take into account the reality of what I have a bandwidth for, and I'm going to really want to put my energy and my time in things that uplift me, things that energize me, things that make a big impact. That's the other thing, especially in my line of work. Impact is so important. And if I'm not making an impact in whatever I'm doing, I have to ask myself the question, okay, is this in alignment with my purpose? Is this in alignment with my values? And if it's not, then I have to step back. So I like how you divided those two. It kind of brought clarity as I was listening to you, just like how you divided the two areas of your life. Like if you think about the different buckets that we put our energy and our time into. And I would say that my buckets are my family, myself, my work, and then like my service, like the service that I do outside of my work, because my work is service. So, I mean, that's what I do. And there's also other things that I like to put my energy into that I really care about, and that I really want to make sure that I'm doing so in a purposeful and meaningful way. And if I'm not doing it in a purposeful and a meaningful way, then I have to step back and say, okay, what can I let go? What am I putting a lot of time and energy in that's kind of like a bottomless pit? It's not really going anywhere. It's not really doing anything for me. It's not really doing anything for the other people involved. So what can I let go? So that really brings back what you brought up, Eryn, about letting go and clearing out. Something that I think is a really good habit to have. One thing that I'm doing is I'm kind of building a kind of executive director wardrobe. And so I've been kind of building that wardrobe. And then I'm like ordering all this stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, this looks really good, but I have all this other stuff that I haven't worn in years that I need to get rid of. So, I need to donate these things, or, look at my closet and see what are the things. So for everything that I buy that's new, I need to be giving away, or taking out at least 3 or 4. So now I have this, like, all of these clothes that are taking up hangers that I could use for my new clothes that are still kind of in their packages. And I'm like, well, I can just give these things away. So, and make room for, because we do have a capacity. And I think that's really important for us to consider when we are prioritizing. We do have a capacity, and that's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do everything. There are a lot of things that we want to do, things that we care about, but at some point we do have to say, okay, what are the things that I have time for? What are the things that are important to me? Maybe I would break it down to maybe 5 things that are important in those different buckets. And then what can I clear away? What's there that's been there, is taking up energy, but no longer needs to. And that brings me to more abstract things like limiting beliefs, or thoughts that we have about our capacity and what we can and cannot do, may be things that are holding us back because that's a mindset from a year ago. And so many things have changed in our lives. And so that gives us a chance to kind of sit down, maybe write down, journal. Journaling is always a good thing. When you get it out on paper, whether it's either through writing, or you could just get a recording device and record yourself talking. A thought partner like a coach. This is a really good exercise for coaching, where you can talk about the things that really matter to you. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What's working for you? What's not, as you brought up, Eryn. So I do like the way that you broke things up. I think that's a really good idea, to like put things into buckets, or put things into slots, or put them into quadrants, whatever works for you, whatever looks good for you. You can always do this visually, like actually tactilely. If you're like a tactile learner, you can you can get buckets, actual buckets, or you can maybe draw. There's so many different ways that we can illustrate what's important to us and how we can gain clarity on that. How do we gain clarity on what things are important? What things are have we outgrown that we need to just set aside and clear out so that you can bring in new things. So, Eryn, what are some things that you would like to clear out in order to make room for the new and exciting things that are happening and are on the horizon for you in the new year?
I like that question, and I want to go back because you just evoked a lot of imagery in what you said from the buckets. But what really stuck out to me was the imagery of the closet, because you may have items in your closet that still work, they're okay, so you hang on to them, and they take up space, and maybe you wear them once, or it's just one of those things that, at least in my own experience, I have a really hard time letting go of. So when I think of that concept of the closet and then apply it to my own personal life and the people around me, the work, the family, all of that, it gets much more muddy and complex, right? Because it's just so nuanced. And I guess, listening to that closet imagery helped me feel a little bit more compassion for myself when I could say, okay, that's how hard it is for me with my closet. Now, with letting go of other priorities and things, that's really hard for me to do. So even to answer your question, don't know if I have a good answer at this point. I think I need to start with a little bit more of that reflection piece. And just forgoing that for the sake of our conversation today, I think what I'm looking forward to in the new year is and you asked me this question when we had coffee and tea at Ozo on Monday last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really want to prioritize my health, physical health. So getting back into running or things like that, diet, all of those things. And it takes up space, emotional energy, time, physical energy to make that happen. So I have to do something different if I'm going to achieve that goal, if I'm going to insert that, make it effective, make it stick. And so I think for me, it all comes down to my business and really trying to look at, I do have all these different priorities of my business in terms of one-on-one service, group support, speaking engagements, trainings and workshops, writing, and now potentially more in the kind of academic space. And so if I just say those aloud, it's like, oh no, I can do all those. But can I do all of those when I have all my other priorities as well? So I think I just need to sit down with being able to see, whether that's in my mind or write it down on paper, what I have and what I want to make space for, kind of like a forward thinking goal around my health. And then how does that fit in? How do I build my life around that versus trying to just add it in? I think that's the other piece. If I just say I'm going to add it in here, add it in there, it doesn't happen. But if I say this is how I pay myself, this is the key to everything, I'm going to do that first. Now, it's a process. It's not going to happen right away, but it's something I definitely want to focus on. And then as a small business owner, like, just to be real, right? I'm not making a large amount of money. And so the output versus the input costs at this point, and not only monetarily, but just energy wise, I need to really take a moment to see how that is working for me or what I could shift so that I'm not maybe overdoing in one area and then not getting certain things back from that either. So that's more of a reflective process. And I think a coaching session for that would be really good, going through that with a coach and coming up with a framework that might help me make better decisions, because I love the work that I'm doing. And, I'm still, seeing clients, and, there's just a lot that I enjoy, but also what is practical.
Yeah, that's that balance between what we want to do, what we can do, what's practical. And also it just goes back to that saying that you shared, I think it was 2 episodes ago, of the plaques that you got with the different quotes on them, but like keeping your head in the clouds, but your feet on the ground. Like, thinking about that, like what does that look like to be grounded, but also be visionary and forward thinking and allowing yourself to dream? So that's so important to be able to dream, but also to be very grounded in what is happening now, and not only being grounded in the present, but also appreciating the present. That's the other thing. It's really easy to, tick it off the list. So I did that, now I'm going to go on to the next, to the next, to the next, rather than taking the time to celebrate, acknowledge, reflect on how far we've come, what we've accomplished, what we have, how we have grown, how we have changed, because it's easy to just go on to the next thing without really taking the time to assess, reassess, recalibrate, that kind of thing. So that's something that really came up for me when you were talking. The other thing is the reflection piece that you brought in that I think is so important. And I think that's something also that we have a tendency to take for granted, or to not to be intentional about, because life is busy. There's lots of things that we have to do. We have a lot of obligations and responsibilities, as well as things that we want to do and things that we need to do. So, taking that time to reflect, and using resources like coaching, other modalities that can help you see or gain clarity on the things that you want to do, the things that you need to do, the things that you dream about, like being aspirational, things that are long term, short term, that kind of thing. Yeah, this is it's an important piece to it as well, the reflection piece. So I'm glad you brought that in there, Eryn, in terms of taking the time to see where you are and where you want to go, and what you have the capacity to do and what you have the capacity not to do. So, or, that you don't have the capacity to do. So that's I think important to take into account when you are choosing to prioritize. And I think it's not only about your values, but it's also about, listening to yourself, to your body, to your mind, to your inner child, to all those things that make us who we are. And on not to mention the fact that there are other people that might be involved. If you're in a family, you might want to talk to the people who are around you the most, who have seen you grow, asking them, hey, so what do you think I do well? Or what do you think when you look at me? Like, what are some of the things that you observe about me or have observed about me in the past 6 months, something like that? Just to get that feedback from the people who are around you, because often we don't notice our own growth. And it's also interesting when you see someone after a long time, if you're in your own, you're thinking about your own stuff and you're doing your own thing, and it's easy not to see how you've grown. So that if it's the holidays, right? So you see a family member that you haven't seen in a year. So maybe you see each other annually, like on Christmas. It might be interesting to ask them, hey, so what do you notice about me that's changed? It might put them on the spot, and it depends on your relationship with them. But it is a fun way to kind of get some feedback from the people who know you, but who may not see you every day. So, with the holidays, we're like in the holidays now, in the holiday season now, those are some times when we meet up with people we haven't seen in a while, not just family, but it could be friends, it could be our social group. For example, we're all busy. So the holidays is often a time when people get together that haven't seen each other for a month, or, several weeks or whatever. So you could return the favor to them as well. Like, I've noticed that you carry yourself differently, something like that. And giving them a compliment, or noticing something that you have seen that has changed, that has maybe resulted in like not an improvement. I wouldn't say an improvement, but like maybe an expansion, or maybe they're lighter, or maybe they speak up more and they weren't speaking up as much. It's very interesting to see someone after, like if you only see them quarterly or annually, just to kind of maybe do this on your own. So you're not like letting people know, but it depends on your relationship with them. But just kind of look and see, how have people changed? How have people changed in the month that, since you've seen them, or the 4 months since you've seen them, depending on when you see them. So the holidays, that's a great time to observe changes among people who you care about, but that you don't see very often. So those are some things that's kind of tangential, but that's something that's kind of come
No,
up in this
I
whole conversation.
I love your concept of noticing, and I like how you took it not only like what are you noticing within yourself, but what are you noticing with the people around you, maybe in the spaces around you, and and just the news around you. Just being aware with a curiosity, I think, is what noticing is, and then pointing it out is part of noticing as well. So you're pointing this out about what's going on within yourself, but then you're also, like you suggested, throughout the holidays, maybe pointing it out within people whom you haven't seen in a while and can really share that positive feedback with them. And you're right, it's really, we can be very myopic about what we notice within ourselves and even within others, really, truly about, what they may be prioritizing or what's going well for them or those sorts of things or for us. And I think that that is a really important coaching tool to use, not only with our clients in the noticing that we do by the way that we listen and by the way that we ask questions, but also, as you said, interpersonally with others, and then intrapersonally within ourselves. And so I like that concept of noticing, and I think it makes a lot of sense with prioritization, because somebody could come up to me that I haven't seen in a year and say, wow, I've really noticed this shift in you. You must be prioritizing this specific thing differently. That would be, I think, a big help to me to hear that and to know that and to be acknowledged for that and to see that. So I think those are very helpful tools. And then I think one thing that I keep going back to in my own mind that I don't know if our listeners are in this space as well, but it might be helpful to explore is my cup, even as I prioritize, it's still kind of like flowing out. It's still overflowing because that's all I really know how to do. And so I think that's a good point. If your cup is like that, it is probably worthwhile to seek out a coach for support in prioritization specifically, and just go in with the goal of that for a few sessions. I want to work on what I'm prioritizing, and that sort of thing. And then I think that can be really helpful because you have that objective viewer with you alongside of you that can support that as well. It's always been a challenge for me, and I'm trying to think back of like, when did a person or a coach or a counselor or somebody really like say something that made me shift? And truly the only thing that I can really think of right now off the top of my head is somebody said you need to prioritize. Like, just the awareness, the understanding of, okay, I do need to have some more order into what I take on and what I don't. And what that could look like, is up to me. And sometimes it's just melding things. It doesn't mean cutting things completely. It could be merging things or things like that too. So that's what I love about coaching. It allows for that creative space to think about all the options, because automatically I might think, oh, I just need to cut something. But in the end of the coaching session or a few coaching sessions, that may not be the case at all. It actually could be something very different. So the creative process of coaching in itself is such an invaluable tool when it comes to prioritization and moving into the new year. So I think that's all I have. Are we circling in on a coaching nugget of wisdom?
It feels like that, like how you're kind of summing things up and you're giving advice about like what people can do when they're looking at their life, and maybe they see disorganization, or they see like overwhelm, if they're experiencing being overwhelmed, or they're experiencing a sense of burnout as well. That's the time to really prioritize, because that's when you really start to notice that you kind of get that reality check. Hey, there's only so much you can do. And if you are focusing on things that you're not getting a good return on your investment, then you might want to consider investing in other things or doing other things. So that reflection, and also having that thought partner and a coach, is a great way to start the journey. And like you said, Eryn, it is a process. So yeah, I would say that we're close to that time where we should be looking at coaching nuggets of wisdom. And it seems like you kind of had a coaching nugget of wisdom there, but I would like to end with a coaching nugget of wisdom regarding the reflection piece, which I think is the start of the process. I think it's a start of the process. Everyone starts differently. Everyone approaches this differently, and that's fine. However, that works for you. I do believe that if you can reflect on where you've been, where you are, and where you want to be, that's one way to get started in this process. If you feel like you're overwhelmed, especially in the holiday season, it's easy to get overwhelmed with not only your daily routine, but also the stuff that's coming up with getting ready for holidays like Hanukkah, Christmas, and those other wonderful holidays that we have around this time. So, thinking about your values and then also thinking about, what you want to do, like how you want your life to be, how you want to feel, and comparing that to where you are now, and also acknowledging and appreciating where you are, because I think
Mm.
there's something to be said about that as well. So Eryn, my coaching negative wisdom is to, reflect. What is your coaching negative wisdom?
And I love acknowledging the appreciation as well that you added in there. That is so helpful, and it's a helpful tool for people to use consistently. As you were speaking, that reflection piece really just got another visual download in my mind. Got the visual download of the closet and the cups and the buckets, and now just this future visioning exercise. I always like those in coaching. So use with your coach a future visioning exercise where you are in the future. You feel what it's like to be you with these new priorities. You go through your day in your mind. You kind of root into what that looks like and how that makes you feel. And that can be a good tool to understand, what you want to try moving forward.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Eryn.
Thanks, LaShawn.
Thanks for joining us for Coaching as Benevolence. I'm LaShawn with Michelle's Sage Place, Positive Intelligence Coaching.
And I'm Eryn with Roots and Wings, Grief and Loss Coaching.
Have a benevolent day.